This is the West Kent Talking Podcast and the Southborough News YouTube channel. I'm Martin Webber. It's the 2026 Borough Council Elections coming up in Tunbridge Wells. We're going to be talking to a range of candidates so you know where they stand on a range of issues, such as farmland being replaced by large areas of housing. The Lib Dem Council wants to borrow £68 million to build a new cinema and revamp the Royal Victoria Place shopping centre. Well, I'm standing at the moment at the St Mark's Recreation Ground, which is part of Pantiles ward. I'm joined now by Daniel, who's one of the candidates. Could you just give us your full name and which party you're standing for?
Daniel Dzenkowski and the Conservative Party.
So, Daniel, tell us a little bit about your history in Tunbridge Wells and why you want to be a local councillor.
Delighted, Martin. So about 8 years ago, moved to Tunbridge Wells. It's been fantastic. My wife is an NHS doctor, which is what brought us here. I'm active in the community. I've got an allotment locally, and I'm really interested in the history. So those are just a few things.
And you want to be a local councillor. There's a lot of work involved in that. Have you got the time and energy to commit to it?
Definitely the time and the energy. I'm really interested in the role, and I think, through the work that I've done locally, I'd like to do a little bit more. And so I'm really looking for a mandate to do that.
So one of the big issues is plan changes to the area we're standing on at the moment. This is currently several rugby pitches, cricket pitch. It's used by the community for dog walking. What are the plans for it?
So, Martin, they're complex, but basically what it is large-scale development that is going to replace this asset of community value and move the rugby club about a mile down the road with replacement facilities.
And how many houses are we talking about being generated in this area?
Well, the current plan is somewhere shy of about 500, so it would be significant impact on the area.
And this is on the front road, so it's quite a narrow, busy road already. Isn't that a significant issue? Are they going to improve the width of the road and to allow for the capacity for more cars coming backwards and forwards?
If only, but it doesn't look like it. And both highways authorities in Kent and in Sussex have raised some objections to the plan as it stands. So I don't think it's going to be any improvement if it goes through. Probably actually make things worse.
Yes, I mean, hundreds more cars every day. Why pick on this particular area then? Why is new housing planned for this area, which is designated, the area the new houses are going to be built on, a lot of it is going to be on an area of outstanding natural beauty?
Well, Martin, I think a lot of us are confused by that. So you're absolutely right. It's a national landscape. It's a protected landscape. It was brought forward in the draft Wheeldon plan, which was basically revoked, and then they've consulted again. So there's really no justification because it hasn't come forward in the local Wheeldon plan that's been approved.
And you talk about Wheeldon, so that's the area of Sussex where these houses, which is right on the border of Tunbridge Wells, which is where most of the houses are going to be built.
That's right, Martin. It's that line right there. That's the Wheeldon boundary. We're right on it.
And what's the verdict so far from planners then? I mean, does it look like this will be approved?
So I would say there's consistent and large opposition to it, not only from the neighbourhood, but also from the statutory consultees. So Sports England has said they object to it. The High Weald National Landscape has said they object to it. And so I think there's sort of broad objection to this, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's still a process to go through.
But of course, housing policy is set by national government, and they have removed a lot of the protections from greenfields, from farmland. So is there really anything you can do about it?
Well, I think the policy is well intended. I mean, there's a housing crisis in this country. It's been building up over the last 40 years. But building on green spaces and building sort of executive homes on green spaces doesn't solve problems around affordability and, importantly, infrastructure, which is a real issue here.
So, yes, you mentioned that. Water obviously has been a big problem. Is there going to be a big new source of water for all these new houses?
There will not be. So in our investigations, we've had some Freedom of Information Act requests. Southeast Water knows they need to make substantial investments, a new pumping station just down the hill, new pipes, and it's not in their capital plan. So I don't know how it's going to work, Martin. We're all going to need more water butts.
So the rugby club behind us are actually supportive of these new plans because they say they're going to get better new facilities. The pitch we're standing on at the moment does flood when there's a lot of rain. So isn't actually a good thing for the rugby club that this development goes ahead.
So, Martin, there's no objection to new facilities. I totally get it. I understand the clubhouse is leaking. The roof needs to be replaced. There's issues here. But they do have planning permission to improve them. And we're standing on the top of the hill. They're looking at moving to the bottom of the hill. And, water goes downhill. So the flooding here doesn't improve with the flooding down there, right? So I'm not sure that's a solution.
You've been campaigning very actively on this planning issue as part of the Green Wealden Alliance. So why have you decided to be a Conservative candidate in this election?
So for me, I'm issues-led, right? And if I look at across all the parties, who's more aligned with the particular issues here around protecting the national landscape? It's actually not the Green Party, it's the Conservative Party. And so that's why I'm aligned with them, and I'm running on that ticket.
But the Conservative Party in the past has been one of those that has weakened planning protections. Why do you think nationally they would be a better option?
Well, this is a local election, and so I would advocate to everybody, vote for the person, not the party, because you've seen what I've done locally, and I think I've had an impact, and I'd like to do more.
And of course, there's not just one development going on, being planned around Tunbridge Wells. There are lots of them, and there's another one in your area as well.
That's right, Martin. There's developments all along the edge of the district here. And one in particular is the Ramslide development. This is just on the edge of town as you leave on Eridge Road. And it's a pretty significant development similar to the one that's proposed here. And what's interesting about it is the historical kind of position there. So there's potentially an old Iron Age fort there. There are protected buildings. And that's an obstacle to planning at the moment. So
and they're digging on it at the moment.
Yeah, there are archaeologists over there at the moment. So it'd be really interesting to sort of, keep an eye on that and see what's happening. But I don't think anybody should rush ahead and put houses on that space when it has historical significance, and it's also very meaningful to the community there.
So you've been campaigning to be a local councillor. What are the main issues that have come up on the doorstep?
Water, and water. Again, actually, though, Martin, it's traffic as well. I mean, you can see the road behind us there. There's quite a lot of activity over there. It's constant, never ending. And the third thing is really the national landscape. People feel really, they care about it. It's part of the community. It's one of the few remaining green spaces here, and those are the main issues.
The Lib Dem Council has proposed borrowing £68 million to try and, what they say is rejuvenating the RVP shopping centre. That involves building a boutique cinema, which they hope to get revenue from by finding a contractor to run it. Do you agree with those plans?
I'm surprised by the scale of them, and I think that's really the impact that the proposal has had on the community. That's a huge amount of risk for the council to take on that scheme. And I guess the question in my mind is what's the business case for it? I think we need a little bit more transparency on that.
It would require a return of £5 million every year when, as far as we know, the rents coming in for RVP is no more than about £1 million or so as it is. So it does sound like it has high expectations of bringing in new people.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think there's some other fundamental problems with how they've engaged with the community, and particularly the Snooker Club. It's been sort of a dismissive attitude towards them, and people feel quite passionately about that space, and I think the voices need to be heard. So my kind of request of the council is to do a little bit more, engage with the community more, and publish more information so people can actually really understand the proposal.
So the Snooker Club is in the Victorian building that was the Friendly Society's hall. Do you think that is worth preserving, that heritage?
Absolutely. I mean, all you have to do is look on social media. I mean, there's a huge following there. There's a lot of passionate people that feel about it. And I think those views need to be taken into account. It's not so much about the council doing things to the community. It's about doing things with the community and bringing them along.
But what ideas have you got to keep that shopping centre going? Because it's one of the council's main assets now. They ended up buying it because the private companies lost interest, essentially, in running it. What would you do to try and keep it alive?
I think it's a real challenge. I mean, I don't have all the solutions at the moment, but sort of big shopping centers in the center of towns, that was a real growth factor in historical years. But the current economy and the way that people buy things is different, and so I think probably just a more innovative and maybe disruptive approach to it. I really need to look into it more.
Overall, do you think the Liberal Democrats, who obviously have taken control of the Borough Council, the Conservatives having been in charge for a long time, the Lib Dems have had a fair run now, what do you make of their record?
So I think they've done some good things, right? What they've done is they've focused attention on the town center. So I think the RVP proposals and the cinema, it shows that they're actually looking to create growth, and that's positive. But on the other hand, and there was a motion in the council just this week about the Pantiles. This is the crown jewel of Tunbridge Wells. It's what people think about when they come to Tunbridge Wells. It's where you take your guests and your friends. And I think it could use some improvement. I think rather than focus on sort of new big projects, maybe we should focus on the basics and what we have here and what makes the town special.
But of course, the Pantiles is privately owned, isn't it? It's not up to the council, other than to check up that all the planning regulations are being followed. It's not up to the council to invest in it because the profits all go to the private company that runs it.
That's absolutely right, Martin. But the council does have power and they do have influence. And I think those kind of levers have not been used as effectively as they could have been. So the motion earlier this week from Councillor Pound was to actually compel them to use those levers. And it'll be a benefit for everybody, including the owner.
Now, Tunbridge Wells has a bit of a reputation for being a difficult place to go to. You've got some confusing signs. Millions of pounds have been taken in fines from confused drivers in the town centre. Plus, there's all the congestion on almost every route into Tunbridge Wells. What other measures are you thinking of? I mean, would cycle lanes, improve buses? Isn't that the sort of way of improving access to a congested town? Have you got any thoughts on those issues?
I think those are all positive things. There's a balance in all of this, though, right? Because on-street parking is necessary for some people, and not everybody rides a bike, and not everybody takes the bus. And so I think one of the key things is looking at sort of creative ways to make the town centre more accessible, because this is what you hear again and again and again. People like to go there. There's great things. There's the Pantiles. There's other shopping, but it's difficult to get there, and also it's expensive because of the parking charges. So I think it needs a fundamental rethink.
Now, your accent isn't entirely a British accent. Give us a little more about where you've come from and what your experience is up till now.
Sure, Martin. So I was born, raised in the United States. I participated in an Erasmus program, ended up in Europe about 20 years ago, and been in the UK since. My family originates part of it from Norfolk. They were from the same church as Abraham Lincoln. The other part, family's Viking, so a little bit of a mix. Total American story there.
And what part of America were you from?
I grew up in the Midwest, so just north of Chicago in a state called Wisconsin.
So a lot of wide open spaces there.
Definitely. Lots of cheese as well. For those of you who might be familiar with Wisconsin, is the cheese state and the Green Bay Packers, yes.
So what prospects do you think you have of being elected? I mean, the Conservatives didn't win last time. Do you think they'll win this time?
I think prospects are good. And the reason I think they're good is because I've been around talking to people. So I've walked around the entire ward. I've knocked on doors. I've distributed sort of our campaign flyers, and I've spoken to people. And the sentiment is really positive. So I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I'd win. And I've been working really hard at it. And it's been a really enriching experience.
Daniel, thank you so much for talking to me. We did invite candidates from all the other parties who were standing in Pantiles, but they didn't make themselves available for this place and time. We will, however, be talking to representatives of other parties in other wards before the Borough Council election in 2026. I'm Martin Webber. I've been talking to Daniel Dzenkowski. This is the West Kent Talking podcast and the Southborough News YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and listening.